Takao Okawara is a controversial figure amongst the Godzilla community. On one hand, he made two of the most revered and beloved Godzilla flicks of all time. On the other, he made two of the blandest. Me, I like him a lot. He's made Godzilla and Mothra, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, Destroya, and Godzilla 2000, and honestly, I like all of those, with Mechagodzilla 2 being the weakest in my opinion. But I do like it, nonetheless. But I do get it when people say that he's more of a TV-style director than a cinematic one. Let's look at his bipolar track record here. Mechagodzilla 2 is very flat and uninteresting looking, while Godzilla 2000 is extremely well shot with interesting color choices and lighting design. Godzilla and Mothra is a bit simple, with its choices of using mainly wides and mediums, while Destroya prides itself with some intimate close-ups and characters. There's no real directorial stamp here, unlike you look at the films by Shiro Honda, or Ryori Kitamura, Jun Fukuda, or even the craziness of Yoshimitsu Banno. He's also been accused of being, well, not all that kind to the Godzilla franchise as a whole, and if you look at his quotes without context, yeah, he certainly houses a disdain for Godzilla in general. But most people lack context of his quotes. They see the whats without understanding the whys or hows. And with this context in mind, with the whys and hows in mind, Okawara reminds me a lot of Jun Fukuda from the Showa era. He's a man who got roped into directing these with no time, no money in his department, and little say in the matter. He found himself shackled by Toho and other powers, but we'll get into that a little later. Takao Okawara started off with a film called Supernatural Powered Girl Raiko. That's a terrible title of a movie, but I'm pretty sure if it was released here, they'd come up with a punchier name. Which he both directed and did the special effects for. He did both. The film didn't do well in the box office, but was visually impressive to the point that Toho producer Shogo Tomiyama, who had all but taken over producing Toho tokusatsu flicks by this time because of Tomoyuki Tanaka's illness and his age, Tomiyama wanted to give him a chance at a bigger flick. And with all the grief I actually do give Shogo Tomiyama for his decisions in the Millennium series in particular, I'll always respect him for giving certain people a chance. This kind of reminds me of modern Hollywood, where they give moderately successful newcomers these huge pictures. I respect that even if there are dozens of asterisks attached to it. The same can be applied to Shogo and what he was doing with Toho at the time. Now keep those asterisks in mind. We'll cover that a little later. What was the state of the Godzilla franchise at this time? Well, by 1992, Godzilla was in a state of flux, a trend that would haunt Godzilla until his official retirement in 2004. Biollante made its money back, sure, but that was all, dubbing it a box office disappointment. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was actually a major hit both critically and financially, so Tomiyama made the decision to stick with already established Godzilla monsters instead of making new ones, and I actually understand and respect that decision. Thus, it only makes sense Shogo Tomiyama would choose to bring back Mothra, because there hadn't actually been a box office dud with Mothra in it. So in comes Takao Okawara, who leapt at the chance to make Godzilla and Mothra. And so would I, in his circumstances. I mean, who wouldn't be? Making a Godzilla movie? Hell yeah! And Okawara had this sort of excitement and enthusiasm when approaching the film. But in comes Okawara's mentality that, in all honesty, I do not agree with. Okawara, much like Jun Fukuda, only saw Godzilla as a means of entertainment, and that was all. He never cared about social commentary or deeper meanings. All Okawara wanted to do was be entertaining to his audience. Despite his Heisei Godzilla flicks having deeper meanings, you notice that he either A, didn't have any control over the script whatsoever, or B, didn't even touch the script, period. Godzilla and Mothra was written by Kazuo Omori, not Okawara. Kazuo Omori directed Biollante and King Ghidorah. And despite me loving Godzilla and Mothra, I agree with the mass sentimentality that this movie is better told about conflicting teams coming together for a greater cause than a stupid story about environmentalism. But that's for another podcast. Remember those asterisks I mentioned above? Well, here's where they come into play. Japanese style of filmmaking is it's just much different than what it is here. The main reason is this, and it's a lack of time and money. This is why we continuously see two directors for tokusatsu flicks, not just in Toho, but in other major studios as well. you have an actual director and a special effects director. The result is them having to work hand in hand, and thus working in this medium, in this style, is not an auteur genre. In Hollywood, you tend to either have a producer or a director stamp that makes it seem like their film. I mean, look at Spielberg. Even if he's just producing, the movie still has his stamp all over it. George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, Sam Bronson, Cecil B. DeMille, Darryl F. Zanuck all have their stamps without them usually being a true director. That's not the case with Japanese tokusatsu movies, and that includes kaiju movies, of course. There needs to be massive collaboration between the special effects director, Koichi Kawakita, in the Heisei Godzilla flicks, and in this case, in terms of what we're discussing, Takao Okawara. If not, the movie will suffer. And it was revealed by Mizaki Tezuka, who worked on many of these films as an assistant in the Heisei era, that Takao Okawara and Koichi Kawakita did not get along. And I'll be honest, I tend to side with Okawara because I feel his frustration the most. When I make a movie, I have my control. I want it a certain way. Any director wants that. Any writer wants that. Any producer wants that. When everyone is on the same page, things tend to work out extremely well. When not, you get a lot of problems. This is what happened on the sets of the Heisei Godzilla films directed by Takao Okawara. Okawara thought that Kawakita never had the visual talent needed for a movie like this, a movie like the Godzilla franchise. And Kawakita often had a mentality that the special effects, they were what were important, not the live-action portions. This mentality often plagued special effects directors. Even Tsuburaya, later on in his career, look at War of the Gargantuas, they had this problem of thinking that their stuff was the important stuff, not the live-action stuff. Therefore, I have more say than you. So here, instead of both parties coming together, Okawara was often forced to make major concessions visually to match the special effects, and not the other way around. Kawakita is far from my favorite special effects director from Japan. I find his style to be bland, focusing too much on beam spamming, and with a lack of creative cinematography to really sell the size and scale of the monsters. Which is sad, because his works on Biollante, and even in Ghidorah, though less so in Ghidorah, they were extremely good. I'm not sure what happened, but in the mid-90s, the creativity just went away. Oftentimes, I would blame time and money, but Kawakita had both of those restrictions before, and he made utter magic. And it's not just Okawara. Look at Space Godzilla. That wasn't directed by Okawara, and those battles, especially the one on the island, they just look downright pathetic. You look at Okawara's best works, or at least in terms of finesse and critics, you'll notice that he had the most creative control. These are his first film, Supernatural Girl Raiko, and Godzilla 2000. One, he was literally the special effects director, and the other, he is quoted as hailing the special effects director for, Kenji Suzuki. And I found out why this was. Before I get there, I just want to say this. I truly believe that Godzilla 2000 was Okawara's definitive Godzilla movie. This movie was made to be nothing but entertainment, the way Okawara always viewed the character in general. But this film certainly delivers on that front. Anyways, getting back on track. The relationship between Okawara and Suzuki in Godzilla 2000 was similar to the relationship between Shigeo Tanaka and Noriaki Yuasa in Gamera vs. Barugon. Shigeo Tanaka was the main one calling the shots, with Yuasa listening, taking notes, and making his special effects to Tanaka's specifications. Both men were okay with this relationship, like Okawara and Suzuki. And there's nothing wrong with this kind of relationship as long as the parties involved are all mutually okay with it. But the problem here is that often, this relationship isn't okay for a tokusatsu kaiju flick. Hence why Okawara's work suffered with his Heisei movies, specifically Mechagodzilla 2, in which I think had a great storyline, but it lacked utterly in terms of a visual flair. And I feel for Takao Okawara because Shogo Tomiyama would often take Kawakita's side more than his. The only reason, as I said before, Okawara got his say in Godzilla 2000 is because the special effects director on that movie mutually agreed to Okawara's leadership. If Suzuki took more of a stance like Kawakita, the movie would have suffered. And I firmly believe that the only reason Destroya was as good as it was because this was supposed to be the final hurrah for Godzilla. Period. And that mentality flowed over to everyone involved in the production, including Akira Ifukube. So I believe that Okawara was just handed a bad rep more than he is actually a bad director. In fact, I don't think he was a bad director at all. He's actually my favorite director from the Heisei series, if only for Destroya, and yes, I like how he handled the actors in Godzilla vs. Mothra. Even in Mechagodzilla 2, with his lackluster visuals, he has some great performances in it, specifically between the woman and baby Godzilla. I genuinely like the direction there. His handling of actors in general I find to be his best strength in the Heisei Godzilla movies. Their facial expressions are always subtle, unless the point is otherwise. I look at Miki Sagusa from Mechagodzilla 2, and especially Destroya. Her performances, they were outstanding, and if the actress was in the hands of another director, we'd have gotten a more preachy performance like the one in Space Godzilla, which, by the way, I used to spit vile at this movie, and I can say confidently now that it's nowhere near as bad as I remembered it, having watched it again recently. With this context in mind, I understand why Takao Okawara has the mentality that he does, and even why he hasn't directed a movie since Godzilla 2000. And I think that's too bad. With how he handles actors, I'd love to see a drama directed by him, similar to how I love Ishiro Honda's dramatic work alongside with his tokusatsu films. And despite me disagreeing with his mentality on Godzilla in general, at least he had a vision. So many directors don't. Even Ishiro Honda, later in his career, like in the last 60s, they lacked a true stance on their work. Okawara had a stance, which, believe it or not, is a big part of any battle. There seriously is nothing worse than a director who doesn't care about their assigned project. If a writer doesn't care, a director can save it. Look at some of Takashi Kimura's later works under Ishiro Honda or even Jun Fukuda. Kimura didn't care about the script for Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but director Banno certainly did. His direction made the script better as a result. Despite the script in Godzilla 2000 being not the best. It was Okawara's direction that put it high above an average Godzilla movie, in my opinion. So I strongly defend Takao Okawara as a creative force. I think he was a man given a less than stellar work environment. And the fact he was able to do what he did, I think is a testament to the man. He is certainly far from my favorite director, but I respect the living crap out of him, and truly wish he could come back and make more movies. Go on Facebook, like AIM Productions, for everything that we're doing, all up-to-date information. Check out our new movie, Sierra. All information is in the description below, blah, 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 blah. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, yada, 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 the whole spiel. And in the end, this is Adam Noyes of AIM Productions saying, sayonara.